In this video, I'm going to share with you the process of how I drew one of my favorite subjects, Mount Talbot. We're going to talk all about graphite techniques. This is Sketch Endeavor. Roll that intro. Now, as you may know, I live down here at the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand, and there's so many amazing subjects around me, and I just had to share with you this one, which is one of my favorites. And in fact, I'm looking forward to painting this. So I've been going through compositional designs and studies, working my way up to that painting, but check out this part of the world. It is absolutely exquisite. Now, this particular landscape of Mount Talbot can be found on the way towards Milford Sound, just outside of a place called Te Anau. Now, this valley forms a natural composition, something that's really harmonious, so I won't have to do too much to the scene to change it in order to make it a really sound composition on either the page or on the canvas. I've seen this particular scene several different times on many different trips, and every time I've been here, it's looked totally different. The light angles changed, the weather conditions have changed, but it doesn't matter what the landscape is presenting. I've always found something really inspiring that I've either wanted to draw or paint. Now, on my most recent trip to this part of the world, I found this little puddle in which that mountain was reflecting beautifully and you could see through the water. And I just love the vegetation and the rocks and that mix of elements and the way it led the eye all the way into the distance. So we're going to have a go at drawing this, and then eventually on my channel, we're going to be painting this as well. So let's get stuck into the sketchbook and start off with some thumbnail drawings. Now, if you recall the previous episodes of Sketch Endeavor, I applied this compositional trick, which is basically drawing the design over and over and over again. It might seem laborious at first, but this allows me to hone in on a really nice composition, and there's not much time invested in each one of these thumbnails. It sure beats going back later after having finished a drawing, only to realize that you could have made a change here at this stage when you didn't really invest much time. It is well worth doing this groundwork. Now, I'm working in the sketchbook. I produced these 6 little thumbnail drawings, and then I arrived on a much more harmonious composition, and I veered a little bit away from what it was showing me in the photographic reference. I don't want to copy the photo directly. I want to apply some of my changes. Now, naturally, some of the elements within the composition in real life will move as our point of view moves, so I never am too worried about getting things exactly right as I see them in the photograph. I'm more than happy to make a change where necessary. I found that back in the past when I was teaching classes, I got some comments from people thinking, well, look, if I change a particular aspect of this scenario, won't somebody find out? It's almost like subconsciously we feel we need to copy exactly what's in the photograph. And this just isn't the case. We can move entire mountains if we want to, so long as our imagination can come up with that concept, and so long as it's an improvement. So here, I really do believe in composing with hindsight. We all have 20/20 vision and hindsight, and I know I've said that a bunch here in the Sketch Endeavor series, but it really does help having laid down the groundwork. This allows you to arrive at a much nicer composition. So here I am at the final version of this drawing, and we're going to lay this in with some really cool pencil techniques. So I've already drawn this scene 6 times in the sketchbook, and one more time as a bigger version once I arrived on that 6th thumbnail. And so now here we're going to make it even bigger, and we're going to hone in on some essential details. And this is going to provide me with a really nice framework, really good plan to carry on with a painting. Most of these drawings will end up becoming paintings. Again, I'm working on a Dreadnought Grey card made by Canford. You'll find all the links in the description down below. And I'm rubbing in some tone here to provide a really nice tonal dynamic right off the bat, using that paper stump and some graphite powder. The graphite powder is simply my saved pencil shavings that has been shaved down on a bit of sandpaper. I just catch this in a little Tupperware container with a screw-tight lid. And this allows me to knock in some really nice tones, and it applies a bit of a lighter touch here. I'm not going too hard out with the end of that paper stump, but I am really enjoying this technique. You would have seen me do this in several of my other Sketch Endeavor videos. There's only so much of control that we can get out of that paper stump, so I do go back and refine these marks with pencils down the track. Now, you would have seen me lay in my initial construction lines there with a number H Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencil. These construction lines end up disappearing almost entirely by the time we lay in our darker tones. I'm sketching everything here the same way that I would do the painting. I like to begin with whatever's furthest away and work my way towards the foreground. And you would have seen in some of my other demonstrations that I'm preserving that darkest tone and eventually the lightest tone for the immediate foreground. I'm constantly thinking about achieving a sense of three-dimensional space and depth within a scene, no matter what I'm doing. Now, I found a fantastic pencil. This here is made by Y Studio, and it's a solid brass mechanical 0.7mm pencil. And in this pencil, I'm using HB, B, and 2B leads. And I'm going to be sketching with this throughout this demonstration. I'm working directly over the tone that I had laid in previously, and I'm going to apply some lighter hatching marks and gradually bring up the resolution of this image. This is a lot like focusing in on that essential detail, and just a light touch will do. I don't go too dark with my hatching at this stage, and I also try to maintain that lightness with really distant elements like this mountain here. Here at this stage, I'll only be using the HB lead. As I come a bit closer, I'll be using B and then eventually 2B for the immediate foreground. I preserve windows in the drawing where I want to come back later and apply lighter tone, and I've got a charcoal pencil to do just that. So I avoid touching those windows. I want to leave them clear, but if I do get any marks that go over the areas that I want white, I just make sure I go back in with my mechanical eraser or that mono zero eraser, and this surgically lifts out the areas that I want to apply the highlights in. It's been really good getting back into sketching, and some of this forced isolation time that I think most of us are going through at the moment, it's been really good to just re-engage with the process and take the mind off all of these things that are going on in the world that are beyond our control. I really do hope your Sketch Endeavor journey is going well. I just want to give a couple of shout outs here. One to Master Heartworks on Instagram, aka Jonathan. Jonathan's been doing some great drawings and I'm really loving the sketch vibes. Another shout out to Jacob Coble, who's also producing some wonderful work and has been using that hashtag SketchEndeavor. It's been awesome keeping up with that hashtag and seeing the amazing work that everybody around the world is producing. And I think at this time, we could really use some more Sketch Endeavor and really pour ourselves into our artistic pursuits. I think that will help us lift our spirits as creatives. Anyway, great work, fellas. It's been awesome to see. I'll keep following that hashtag Sketch Endeavor, and you never know, I may even give you a shout out in another episode of Sketch Endeavor. I'm following that hashtag pretty closely. Now, I got a question recently through email from somebody who wanted to know how can I avoid smudging my drawing as I work on it. You would have seen through a few of my drawing demonstrations that I use a paper shield. It's imperative that this shield does not move against your drawing, as that can smudge whatever's underneath. But this does protect the drawing from my hand in that side-to-side movement of the hatching technique. So I make sure I constantly have that in place to avoid ruining all of that hard work that I've put into the drawing so far. Now, for drawing things like grass, what I'm trying to do here is preserve tone. It's quite a tricky thing to draw indeed. We're more or less bringing the background in either side of a blade of grass, trying to leave that negative space. I can then go back in with a white pencil, lift out some of those highlights, as you can see here. There's a couple of instances here where I've tried to draw over the graphite, and it does go down a little bit, but it can smear and smudge and provide a bit of a cold gray. Sometimes I like to keep it a bit cleaner than that, but it is going down a little bit over the graphite. Any areas really heavily laden with tone, the white pencil won't go down at all. So those two don't mix whatsoever. And in general, charcoal and graphite don't mix. So it's about really preserving those areas that you want that highlight to go down in. Now I've swapped out the B lead now for a 2B lead, and that's allowing me to get some more darks into the depths of the rock shadows, as well as some of the shadows in the immediate foreground. And I'm hoping as I alternate between the darker tone of that pencil and the lighter tone of this charcoal pencil, we'll start to create some real interest here in the foreground and really draw the viewer's eye to what's happening here in the immediate foreground. Eventually, I want the key subject here, the real hero of this composition, to be that crystal clear water right here immediately in the foreground, something to greet that viewer and provide a bit of an element to draw the viewer in and lead them directly towards that mountain. Now, when drawing something like water, we've got to consider all of the different phenomena that we're viewing at once. I try to consider first what's happening underneath the surface of the water. Because we're drawing and it's all one layer and I can't layer with oil paint here, it can be a little bit tricky. But I'm noticing in my photographic reference that where there is an absence of the reflection of sky or snow, these are the areas where we can actually look through the surface of the water, and some of those stones on the underlying surface are starting to show up. In the areas where there's a reflection of the snow, we don't really see any of the stones underneath at all. So that's why you see this lighter patch here in the surface of the water. Again, what I try to do is look at that photographic reference and really understand the phenomenon that I'm seeing so that I'm able to effectively replicate it. Now, painting this scene is going to be a whole nother trick, so we're going to be able to talk about layering that water, and this oil painting demonstration is going to be coming your way very, very soon. So stay tuned for that one. Now, here we do have a direct reflection of the sky, and I can see through the surface of the water at this angle, so I'm knocking in some of the elongated shapes of the stones and a few crispy little edges here and there, but this is going in with a number H pencil or HB. But I'm not going anywhere towards the B's or 2B's here for this part, as I want to give that indication that there's a slight reflection of sky, but we can see through it also ever so slightly. A question I often get asked is how long do drawings like this take me? So working on something around the size of an A4 sheet of paper will take anywhere between 6 to 10 hours. So I do spread this out over several Sketch Endeavor sessions. Those sessions are likely to get a bit longer in the immediate future. Now here with some of the darker shadows of these foreground elements, those marks are going one on the other pretty nicely. I find that if I'm not pressing too hard and embossing the paper, I'm able to build up that tone pretty significantly and able to get to nearly black with just a 2B mechanical pencil. I really love the weight of this pencil as well. It's a little bit fatter than I'm used to, but having something really heavy in the hand is actually working really, really nicely. I think I prefer this to my ordinary sketch pencils. Not to mention, it's really nice to have a bit of sketch bling on the drawing table. I'm going to put a link to that in the description down below if you want to check out the Y Studio pencil. They're not a sponsor by any means, just sharing with you guys what I've been using. Also, any of the other materials, again, you're going to find in that description down below. I push up to the edge of the maximum tone whether I'm dealing with a highlight or a shadow. I try to gradually just get there before really going hard out and nailing where the brightest brights are going and the darkest darks. This allows me some modicum of control throughout the process, and I get to adjust this and achieve more of a sense of depth by gradually approaching that edge. So here in the foreground, I'm going a bit harder with that lighter color, and I can always go back and add a bit more tone, so long as I'm not pushing too hard in the initial stage. Here in the background, I'm pressing quite light with the white pencil, and this is applying some really nice subtle highlights. I can go back with a very small paper stump and blend these in somewhat. This provides just a bit more softness in the far distant mountain. It's very similar to the way I paint. I'm always saving my tonal best for last and working my way up to that point where all of the tones come together. I erase around the edges to clean up the drawing, and to remove any of that eraser dust, I've got a nice broad draftsman brush that just cleans up that drawing. I'm careful not to brush too much across the surface though. But there you have it. We've got a finished drawing of Mount Talbot with a little bit of clear water. I am really excited to turn this little drawing into a painting. Stay tuned for that one. Now, I appreciate you watching the video all the way up to the end. I just want to take a quick minute and just share with you a personal message. I've been really touched by the sheer amount of emails and messages that I've received from people wanting to know about my well-being and how Rachel and I are doing down here in the South Island. I really appreciate you reaching out. We're doing just fine down here. But let me just take a minute and just reaffirm what I feel my role could be moving forward despite this global crisis. I don't want to be a platform or something to remind you of what's going on in the world. You can just turn on the news and find out about what's happening, but rather be something that you can lose yourself in. I want to provide as much free content as possible so that you can re-engage with your creative practice. And while everything seems like it's being really chaotic out there, I hope that you'll be able to come back to the channel and learn a new technique, maybe get stuck into your sketchbook, maybe find a painting that you can work on, or something that you can engage in creatively to maybe just take your mind off it for a little while. And I really want to take this opportunity to thank you. We just cracked 250,000 subscribers on my channel, and I couldn't have done this without you. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, for commenting on the videos, clicking that like button. I really, really appreciate it. So again, if you like this video, then make sure you click that like button, leave me a comment down below. If you want to come back for more, then make sure you're subscribed to this channel and click that notification icon so you're notified when I upload another video. As always, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, but most important, make sure you're subscribed with me directly through my website at andrewtischler.com. Now, you may not already know, but in light of what's going on in the world, I've decided to massively slash my prices on my online tutorials, but also with my upcoming release of the Epic Landscape tutorial to just make this a little bit more accessible for people. There's a lot of people out there that have been laid off of work and are really hurting right now. So if there's one thing I can do, hopefully that's to encourage you to get a bit more creative. So hopefully that's made it a bit easier for people to have access to the longer versions of what I produce. And again, I'm going to continue to release this stuff free on YouTube as well. But if you want those longer form tutorials, the 7.5 to 8 hour tutorials, then you can find those on my website right now at a massively reduced rate. And I thank you so much for your support, and thank you for watching. I've really enjoyed your company, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon.